Hi, everyone. I hope this finds each of you so very well. I'm speaking to you from my studio in West Orange, New Jersey, and I could not be more delighted to have the pleasure of interviewing Lisa Campion, a psychic counselor and Reiki master teacher who brings over 3 decades of experience guiding individuals to awaken their intuitive gifts and embrace their full healing potential. With more than 15,000 one-on-one sessions and thousands of students trained in Reiki and energy medicine, Lisa's influence is both vast and deeply personal. She is also a best-selling author of The Art of Psychic Reiki, Energy Healing for Empaths, Awakening Your Psychic Abilities, and the Psychic Awakening Journal. And she continues to inspire through her podcast, The Miracle of Healing on Empower TV, where she shares her insights with a global audience. Lisa's journey began as a highly psychic child in the 60s and 70s, a time when resources for sensitive souls were scarce. Seeing spirits, sensing illness, and feeling the emotions of others wasn't just Lisa's reality, it became her calling. And today, she is passionately devoted to helping others navigate their psychic experiences with grace, clarity, and confidence. I'm looking forward to an enlightening, empowering, and deeply healing conversation with Lisa, who lives just outside Providence, Rhode Island, as we explore how the loss of her twin brother in utero sparked her psychic gifts, why grief and loss can be a gateway to intuitive awakening, how each of us can cultivate our own psychic abilities, the nuanced difference between psychic and intuitive perception, her book, Awakening Your Psychic Abilities, and more, for an interview with a remarkable woman who believes that the world needs all the healers it can get. And I could not agree more. Hi there, and welcome to the Grief and Rebirth podcast. I'm your host, author and trauma survivor Irene Weinberg, here to encourage you wherever you are in your healing journey. In each episode, I chat with incredible grief and trauma specialists, healers, mediums, and celebs, as well as remarkable people who have inspiring healing stories to share. If you're looking for a podcast that's both uplifting and inspiring, you've found it. Let us help you find your joy in life. Hi, Lisa. A truly warm, heartfelt welcome to Grief and Rebirth podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here with you, and I just can't wait for this conversation.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be like, how did the kids say, rad or cool or? So let's begin at the beginning. You were once a twin, and you had a twin brother in utero, and this gave you your psychic gifts. How do you know that this is what gave you your psychic gifts? And tell us about that.
Yeah, it's such a funny way to come into the world. I really feel like I remember his past at about 14 weeks. I remember it very clearly. I've remembered it many times. Wow. In many different occasions, in lots of different ways. So I can say that he died at 14 weeks and I carried on. And you know how like twinsies are connected, mind connected? And I think like he went to the other side and that connection remained open for me.
Oh, wow.
So that I was literally born psychic. And I really feel like the contract with him was for that. And I remember this conversation that we had before we got here, where he's like, I'm going to come in with you, but I'm going to leave. And that's it. The coming in with me was kind of like, I had this image of like holding onto his hand and like standing on the edge of a dock and jumping into cold water and being like, 1, 2, 3, ready, go. We're going together, And then he's like, I'm not going to stay, but I'm going to come in with you to sort of ease the scariness of coming back onto the planet. And the passing will give you the gift because, that's my mission was to, go through all the experiences that I did. That's what happened.
You had quite a soul plan, didn't you guys?
I know.
Wow.
I did. I wasn't kidding around. I came in with a strong mission and I've always been very connected to that mission. I've always known what it was.
And then here you've got these gifts and all this happened to you, but you got your family and you're a psychic child in the 60s and 70s. I mean, it wasn't even cool in the 90s when I had my car accident. I couldn't even tell people about my spiritual awakening because they would thought then that was nutty.
Yeah.
So you grew up as a psychic child in the 60s and 70s when no resources could explain what you were experiencing, nor could people understand it. You're seeing spirits, you're sensing illness, you're feeling the emotions of others. So did that scare you? And how did your parents and community react? Or did you keep it hidden?
I knew from a very early age that I had to be quiet about it, that I just had to be quiet. My mother was a therapist. I don't know why I knew this, but I knew that it's like I had to be quiet or I was going to end up in a mental hospital. Because if you see angels and talk to dead Uncle Fred, that's where they would put you back then, you know? And so I was like, my guides were like, don't tell anybody. And, and my brother was like, shh, don't tell anybody. So I was really alone. And I mean, my parents were very cool, hippie types and very spiritual, but you know, they didn't know, like nobody knew what, and I was told it was my imagination, you know? I remember going to the library and looking for books on this and finding like Seth Speaks, you know, Jane Roberts, like Edgar Casey. That was really all there was. And if you think about it, like no books in the library, no psychics on TV, no internet, nothing that, you know, no beautiful podcasts like this, nothing like what we have. And I spent most of my childhood trying to figure out what was going on, make it stop, you know, stop it when I needed to, and just trying to pretend to be normal in public. So I, you know, could go through my life. It was an odd, and I wasn't really, there were very few times that I was afraid. I don't know why I wasn't afraid of spirits. I was way more afraid of living people. Living people seemed to me like the problem. You know, like that was
you were right on, kid.
That's where the issues were. I'm like, spirits, they're not really, and I saw some shadows, I saw some dark things, and you know, there were occasions that I was scared or more upset, not scared, but upset at the level of trauma, the level of, you know, human trauma, which still continues to upset me.
You could feel their pain. You could
feel their pain. I could see what happened to them. There was the guy who hung themselves in my grandparents, you know, barn in Vermont. My grandparents lived in Vermont, and they had this big old barn, and all the kids would play in there, and I wasn't going to play in there, because there was a guy, you know, and I didn't want to go in there. And that the pain and trauma of that's what impacted me, like the actually pain of what happened to him. Not so much that there was, it's not wasn't that there was a ghost that was there that was scaring me. That
you could feel what had happened to this guy.
Yeah, and like that was horrible. That was to me like what I couldn't handle.
And I would imagine it was a problem also if your parents said, go play over there, and you wouldn't go in. They thought you were a problem. What the heck is she being so difficult for? Yeah,
that was really a problem. So the problem was the social situations. Like my mom's best friend lived in this big old Victorian house. I grew up outside Boston. And, you know, there was this dead girl on the stairs from the first floor. And I didn't want to go over there, but I couldn't tell anybody why, you know? So it was just like, don't be difficult.
Yeah, so they thought that you were difficult, right?
Yeah, don't be difficult. And I'd be like, you know. So, but you know, I'm a Gen Xer, grew up in the Gen X generation, and my whole generation just learned how to suck it up and deal with things because we never had help from grown-ups. We always just had to figure it out for ourselves, and this was just one more thing that I had to figure out for myself.
Right. And people couldn't relate to what you were because other people didn't have your gifts. But you got lucky because your parents took you to meet the Maharishi yogi when you were 10 years old. And he had a very personal message for you that at 10 years old, that changed your life. So tell us about that.
Yeah, that was amazing. God bless my hippie parents. Took me to transcendental meditation.
Yeah, that was like great that they did that.
Totally. It was one, and they did many things like that. And, you know, they took me when I was 10. That's what you did when you were a hippie in 1974. You learned transcendental meditation. And I didn't know what I was doing there, but Maharishi, and I had no idea who he was. I had no idea who he was until I went to college and studied comparative religion. And I was like, oh my God, the penny dropped, like what happened. Took me into the back room, and he was talking through a translator, and he was kind of like, blah, 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 blah. And then he really looked at me. Oh my goodness, honey, I'm so sorry. Like, wow, you really have a gift. And if you had grown up in my country, he was from India. If you'd grown up in India, we would know what to do with you. But because you grew up in America, and America is basically spiritually still finding its way, then, you're just really out of luck. But you need to hang in there because you're going to help a lot of people when you get older. And you really just childhood's going to be difficult, but really hang in there because it's going to be okay in a little bit. And I was stunned because it was literally the first time any adult, like talked to me on that level. And it was something I held in my heart as like a beacon of light for so long. And then I went to college and I figured out who he was. And I was like, oh my goodness, like an extremely famous spiritual
That's right.
ascended
You had
master, and he did. He gave me darshan. He like gave me Shaktipat. And I lived off that for so long. Again, my hippie parents, when I was in high school, took me to, they called it back then Silva mind control. Now it's called the Silva method. Same thing, incredible spiritual training for a young psychic. I was obsessed with martial arts. So I studied martial arts when I was young too. Mostly because I was a science fiction geek and I just wanted to be a Jedi Knight.
You sound like such a fun kid.
I took martial arts classes and I learned a lot of spiritual things that way too. So somehow along the way, I got the help I needed when I needed it in these very miraculous and powerful ways.
Did your parents know what the Maharishi had said to you?
No, nobody knew. I never told anybody.
Wow. And the other thing I want to ask you is that I know that you're able to see colors, auras around people, right?
Yeah.
So for those of us listening who don't know what an aura is, could you explain what they tell you about a person, how you see them around people, animals, or even plants? And then you also see angels.
Mm.
And so what do they look like to you? And what do you see that tells you when a person is sick or going to die? Is that in their aura also?
Often it is, yeah. So an aura is just like the energy, the spiritual and vital energy that we emit that, exists outside of our physical body. And I see it as in colors. Other people feel it. I'm a visual psychic, so I see things, and you can tell if somebody has bright color. We know colors are connected to our emotions. We know what somebody means if we say someone's feeling blue or that they're pea green with envy, right? We know that color are connected to our emotional states, right? So I'll see that, and usually when I see like darker colors, brown, black, gray, it's sort of like depression. Brown is like physical illness and kind of how much there is. When somebody's getting close to death, their colors kind of dim out. They sort of look like more like a black and white picture instead of like really vibrant. And, over all the years that I've done Reiki and energy medicine, 27 years now, I just really could connect, this color is because this person's really depressed or really ill or really has lots of anxiety. Anxiety looks like kind of that like neon lime lemon green color. It's a very like unnatural actually color to find in the energy field, but it's, all too common these days, sadly. And angels to me look like they never looked like people with wings, although they often do appear that way to other people. To me, they always look like big, giant columns of energy. And actually, honestly, I was terrified of them when I was a kid because they would come into the room and they're so huge and they have so much energy. The first time one came into my room, I felt like a freight train was running through my room. I think I got under my bed.
Wow.
And I was like shaking. I was like, what is that? It was like literally the biggest spirit I've ever seen.
Wow.
I was an archangel.
Oh my God.
And it was like, I'm out from under the bed. And I was like,
Was this before or after the Maharishi?
Before, I think I was really.
Oh my God. And you couldn't tell anyone. So you're scared out of your mind. You have this big column of light in front of you. You can't say anything. It didn't communicate with you. It didn't.
Sure. Yeah, it did. And it was really kind and loving. It was just giant. So eventually I came out from under the bed. And I love angels and I continue to work with them, but I'm a little like in the Bible, it talks about people falling down on their knees in awe when they're around angels. And that's what it's like for me. When they come in, I'm like, oh my God. And I'm always a little bit like, what do you want me to do when they show up? Because I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get a new assignment.
What's next?
I know. Like, what am I going to? They're like, what did I do wrong? Or what do you want me to do?
What are you here for? Okay, I signed up, but what's next? I can relate.
Exactly. That's exactly what it's like. And they do come and work with me when I do healing sessions, which I think is pretty cool. They're intense.
That is very cool. Do you find that the angels come in for certain people or they just come in generally to help you with the healing?
I tend to work with them when I do healing work and I always have. And there are certain people who are angel people, or certain people that are really aligned with angelic energy. And I just see tons of angels around them. I love those people. Everybody loves those people. Those are the people we say like they don't have a mean bone in their body. They're so kind. The real light workers are those angelic people. And they struggle a lot because this is a pretty dark planet. It's 50% light, 50% dark. And that's, for most of us, that's like, yeah, whatever, that's just Tuesday, right? For the angelic people, it's terribly challenging for them because they really don't have any shadow inside of them. Right. They're super light. Yeah.
And they're feeling everything that's going on and sensing everything that's going on. Could you explain to people, Lisa, how is the soul the essential part of a person that holds the person's core essence? And how does soul work with you help a person connect with his or her gifts? So like if someone comes to you and they say, I'd like to know if I have gifts and what's going on with me, and they're very new to all this. Tell us how you work with them, how you identify where the person is stuck. You even identify past lives and their impact on this life. You're a one size fits all. You can find it all out from you and identify where a person's soul wants to be in the future. I mean, you got the whole thing, past, present, future going. How do you access all of this? What is this? This is like what a session with you would be like, right? You bring forth all this information.
Yeah, I call it soul readings. And that's really my orientation as a psychic, is to look at who you are from the level of your soul. That's your essential nature. I don't think our essential nature changes very much from incarnation to incarnation. It has sort of an eternal quality to it. And to me, that's what's the most beautiful and fascinating about somebody, is their essential nature. And that might be like what you've done in your past lives. It's really good to know, like the themes. I always see past lives as sort of themes, or even archetypes. And what you're maybe still working through from your past lives that hasn't been resolved, what your mission is, what your purpose is, what's blocking or obstructing you from fulfilling your purpose, it's like your soul has a story, like a narrative part. And that's what I'm looking at, what your soulmate connections are with the people around you, what your purpose is. And I have to tell you, that's the number one question that I get. What is my purpose? It drives people nuts not to know what their purpose is.
But for some people, Lisa, isn't their purpose mainly just to put out love?
Yeah.
I mean, does it always have to be a mind-bending?
It's not always a mind-bending. I think it's way, way, way more simple than most people think. So a lot of times people get purpose work mixed up with their job. It's never your job. Your purpose is always a state of being. And it might be to be love. It might be to bring compassion onto the planet. It might be about caring, nurturing. It might be about leading, changing the world through leadership. It might be about intense creativity, expressing yourself. It's these, when you know what your purpose is, you're going to do it in every single area of your life. In fact, you already have been doing it in every, if you're a nurturer, you're going to nurture everybody your whole life without thinking about it. It's that simple. And sometimes it's connected with our physical job, like our actual work, but sometimes it's not. So I think we have to change our mind about it. It's not a job you do. It's a state of being.
Well, another question I have for you, Lisa, is do they have a purpose to clean up karma or stuff that's happened in past lives? So do some people come into a lifetime specifically to encounter whatever's going to motivate them to go for healing?
I think we all have that. We all come in with, I always think of your karma as like leftovers. Whatever you didn't eat for dinner, you're having it for lunch the next day. And, it's like we all have stuff that we don't have time to work through in our past lives. And you didn't clear that stuff off your plate because you pass away. It's a long journey. We have many lifetimes on the planet, and we just drag whatever that unfinished stuff is forward into our life. Still, we have another opportunity for healing. It's not punishment. It's not you were super naughty in a past life, so you're going to get a whammy in this life. It's not that. It's everything we do is an opportunity to heal, to clear, to I think we don't get off this planet until we clear our karma with everybody we've encountered. If you have leftover sticky karma with somebody, you'll be given a lot of opportunities to work it through and
come back a few times. That's all. If you don't, right?
That's right.
And another thing you do that I think is so great is that I've been given the statistic that 20% of the population are high sensitives, right? And explain how empathy can feel like a person's greatest weakness. I can so identify with that because I'm a high sensitive also, when you don't know how to handle it. And then once you learn how to manage it, it becomes one of your greatest strengths. So how do you do that for people, for the high sensitives listening?
Mm. Yeah, it's that's a life changer right there when you figure out how to do it. And it's pretty simple. It's about learning really good energy hygiene practices. We have to learn how to manage our energy. We have to learn how to clear the energy we pick up from other people, or you're out in Walmart, or you're on an airplane. Sensitives are like sponges. We absorb all that stuff, and we need a way to release the energy that doesn't belong to us. We need to continually be grounded and reconnected to the earth. We need to be grounded and embodied, and we need some protective, to kind of up our boundaries so that we're less permeable. And I just use a really simple breathing visualization, sort of guided meditation, to help people ground and clear and up their level of protection. When we do that, it's life changing because you can get off the couch, stop watching Netflix, and go out into the world and do the purpose work you're meant to do here.
Right.
Maybe that, work.
So when you see all that funky stuff out there, instead of feeling it yourself, you can put some protection around yourself.
That's right. And just live in a more energetically boundaried way. It gives us freedom to roam about the world and do what we came here to do.
So now you've been using a combination of psychic work, Reiki, and spiritual counseling in your sessions. What inspired you, all these sessions you've done, what inspired you to shift your focus? Because now you're into writing, teaching, and mentoring other healers and psychics. So there are people listening who might like to learn how to become a healer or a psychic.
Yeah, I had a busy one-on-one practice for 25 years. I was seeing clients one-on-one, and then 10 years ago, 2015, I had this dream at night of like this light that was in my heart, and I just took the light out of my heart and I gave it to another person, and they gave it to another person, and that light just ran across the world like this wave of light, and I could see all these other people doing that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm part of a group of people who came here to help light up, bring more light onto the planet. And I knew then that I felt inspired to impact more people. And doing the one-on-one sessions was great, but if I started writing and teaching, it would be and podcasting, it would be like a bigger, faster way to spread that light. And I'm sure that's what you're doing here too.
I think you and I are so aligned with our soul purposes. It's amazing. Really, we're both on the same, and everything we're both doing is to help people to heal, So another thing I wanted to ask you is that you talk about that loss and grief open a person's psychic abilities. Now, for the people who are crying their eyes out right now, and they've had a terrible loss in all that, how does that loss and their grief open them up? And what are easy things each of us can do to open our psychic abilities and maybe even get messages from the other side?
Well, I think it's anytime we have sort of a near-death experience ourselves, or we're close to somebody that dies, it creates an opening or a portal, a doorway between us and the other side, like what happened for me and my brother, what happened for you and your husband. And we start thinking about the afterlife. We start thinking about that person. They're sending us communication. We're wanting to communicate with each other, and then literally the veil between the worlds gets a little thin, and then we can make those communications possible. So I think it's one of the great spiritual openers, psychic openers, heart openers that we can go through, as horrible and tragic as it is. And I know for so many people have had your same experience, which is losing somebody puts them on a mission to figure out, where is that person? Is heaven for real? What are they doing over there? Maybe they're getting signs and omens or getting communications, and it goes from being sort of an abstract idea to a real part of your life that you can't deny, And I think that's where we have the opportunity, and I think to really deeply heal from loss. And what I notice about having done lots of mediumship work in my life is that people who find a way to connect and make that real, the grief is a little easier,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It brings such a comfort.
Yes.
I have the comfort of knowing, and you do with your brother, I have the comfort of knowing that when I cross over, I'm going to be with him. It's not over when it's over. We're just getting rid of the earth suit over here.
That's right. Yeah.
Right?
100%.
So in your book, Awakening Your Psychic Abilities, there's so much a person can glean from your book. you want to tell us the difference between, you talk about the difference between psychic and intuitive perception. And what is the difference between a psychic hit? How does a person know, listening to this, that they're getting a psychic hit and it's not just their mental, chaotic brain talking to them? And what else would you like everyone to know that they'll learn when they read your book?
I think that the difference between psychic and intuition is that, first of all, everyone has both of them, but our intuition is our inner knowing, like our connection with our higher self. So it's sort of like the highest part of you talking to you, and we feel it mostly through our physical body, like we know what we know, and we are feeling. So you'll say, I have a good feeling or bad feeling about that, or I knew that was going to happen, or you get a strong physical sensation. And it's really meant to help guide us through our own life, to navigate. And I think now more than ever, people need that, 'cause it's getting kind of crazy out there, and that we need that intuition to help us navigate, especially through choppy waters. Psychic is when we get information from outside of ourselves. That's your loved ones who have crossed over. That's your angels, the ascended masters. That it's coming from outside of our system. And it often tends to be through the visual and auditory channels. Not always, but that's
like I got the message. Be loving and kind to everyone. That was
feel it. That's it. That's a great psychic message. And the intuitive part of you might have been, something's coming, get ready. That might have been your higher self telling you that. So I think that's how it is. And the easy way to know the difference is if you feel anxious or worried, it's not a psychic hit. If you're emotionally charged up, reactive, it's not. If you're in like deep, intense fear, like even really huge psychic messages, when I've had them, have a neutral emotional tone to them. Even when I woke up in the middle of the night and this voice was ringing in my ear that's like, you're going to get divorced. And I really didn't want to do that because my kids were really little. And I was like, oh crap. But it wasn't like this huge emotional upheaval. Later, I had a lot of huge emotional upheavals about that. But in the moment, if it's neutral, emotionally neutral, it's probably a good psychic.
They're not political at all. They just say what they have to say.
Yep,
like when I got the message, he's not going to make it, you are, or be loving and kind to everyone. It was said with such neutrality. There was it was just like a statement. I felt like I was getting a heavenly directive, which was basically what it was. But no big emotion or anything, just fact.
And if you get the big emotion, it's probably your own self making stuff up.
Or
it's your own inner fears, your own anxiety, your own inner neurosis. That's kind of rising to the surface. Yeah.
And the other thing I got to ask you is, you say that anyone can be more psychic if they're willing to put in a little work, and the payoffs are huge. What are the payoffs? What do you call it?
The two things are being able to navigate our own life. So I think that's psychic work is very useful, right? So when we're getting those informations, we're getting those sort of breadcrumbs from the universe, we get incredible guidance about our own life. And if you want to live a more soul-aligned life, listening to your intuition is a beautiful way to do that, because your soul does not speak to your mind. It's speaking to your heart, your belly, your tailbone, like your intuitive sense is where we get that information. And then I also think that a lot of it is about helping and serving other people. And sometimes your angels take control over you, open your mouth and give you a message to the person. And we do that all the time. We have an agreement with our guides to be of service to each other. And we just, if you want to help people and be of service, however many ways we do that, it may just be the person behind you in the checkout line. It doesn't have to be like a formal healing practice, but there's so many ways to weave this into our relationship so we can continue to be of service.
That's beautiful. So on that note, let's hear about, you have so many offerings, you really need like a separate chapter. You've got classes, you've got programs, you've got private sessions, you have empathy and group healings, you've got clinics, you've got free classes, webinars, workshops, online courses, and quantum group healings. So let it rip, Lisa. Tell us about all of this that people can sign up for, and there'll be information on the show notes, of course.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Yeah, one of the things that I love to teach, it's on my website, is Reiki. So I teach something that I call psychic Reiki, which is psychic development plus Reiki. And then I have all levels of psychic development, from beginner, intermediate, to all the way to pro. Like if you want to be a pro psychic, I got you. And then I do this newest thing that I'm doing is the quantum healings. So my Reiki's really shifted, and I'm working more with this quantum healing work now. If you want to experience, quantum healing uses light to heal. It's super fast, super powerful, very relaxing and beautiful. It's real like next level 5D quantum consciousness.
Right. Well, it kind
And
of takes you from emotional release to spiritual awakening, right?
yeah, that's
So
right.
explain how that happens. Someone comes to you, or you've got a group.
Yeah, I've got a group. I do them every month. They're live on Zoom. So you sign up there. They got a great price point. They're nice and, affordable. You sign up and you basically like lie down. You want to lie down in your bed because people go very deep. It's a deep theta brainwave state. And I do the healing. There's usually a theme, connected with them. And these healings just really quantum lead people's spiritual growth. So they tend to let go of that thing you've been chewing over in therapy for 10 years. Let's just get rid of it. That, let's drop the lower frequencies out.
Are you energetically pulling it out from them?
It's a very channeled experience. So the guides I work with come in and do like a lot of transmutation work. So like clearing lineage stuff, clearing past life stuff, clearing blocks in the chakras, clearing all, let's clear the decks. And then once the decks are cleared, connecting you with the higher frequency energies help you feel more joyful. The thing about high frequency, about quantum and consciousness and the 5D is when we're there, we're joyful, we're happy, we don't get triggered, we're aligned, we're full of light. That's where we really want to be. And
you're walking into a room and people are going, "What's with her? I want more of that."
That's right. Did you get a facelift or you just have more light in you? Like it's kind of like light is that ultimate anti-aging.
That's what happens when you lifted a backpack of woes off that person's being, right? That's really cool. That is so cool.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
And do you also teach them as they're opening about psychic self-defense to not let any entity please educate everyone about this entity attachment thing and how people need to practice psychic self-defense.
Yeah, I would never open up someone psychically without giving them some good psychic self-defense. Maybe it's from my like martial arts days where I'm really like, was really into that. But I think we need a little street smarts out there. We need to be informed. We need to know what we're doing. And it's not to scare anyone or be like a horror movie. It's just to like, if you have good street smarts, you can walk down the street in any city and in any country and in the world and be safe. And that's just what I want. It's really about setting boundaries, and learning some protection, what not to do and, what to do so we can be safe. We can be safe and happy in our spiritual exploration. Don't take the Ouija board to the abandoned mental hospital and do a seance. That's on the big no, the big no list. But if we're not doing like the things that we see a lot of people do on paranormal TV, which is super entertaining and fun, but not what we should model ourselves on. There are lots of safe ways to explore the psychic worlds and the spiritual worlds. We just need a little knowledge in order to do it.
And what to say and what to do.
Yeah.
Before that happens. I know that you have a special promo that you're going to be offering everyone. You want to tell us what it is? I know we're going to feature it in the show notes for you.
Yeah. So it's a really fun hour video on how to open your intuition. So if you're feeling like all of that sounds good and you want some really easy, simple, fun, playful ways to open your intuition, it's all about that.
It sounds cool. And tell us about the self-compassion revolution and your message about how important, Lisa Campion, of all people, why should people heal? Why should they go to all this trouble?
I don't know. I mean, that's what we're here for. I really think it's ultimately our mission. We have two missions in our incarnation: heal the wound, and then help find a way to help and serve other people. And healing ourselves. So the self-compassion revolution is a little workshop that I did on inner child work. And that's the next book. I'm working on book number 6 right now. And it's about, it's about sacred reparenting, inner child work. And I just feel like we come onto the planet to continue to heal ourselves, continue to work with our inner child, to heal our karma, to heal our lineage, our family stuff. And so we can let go. I think about the hot air balloon that has the sandbags around it. We need to doing healing work is like dropping the sandbags, you said, the heavy backpack. Dropping it off so that we can lift higher and we can be more light. We can be more joyful. And I love to do that work. I've always loved to do that work with people. And I really think that's how we change the world. If everyone did their healing work, I don't know if we'd have the problems in the world we have right now.
What a different world this would be if everyone did their healing.
Yeah.
Wow. And what is the Lisa Campion tip for finding joy in life?
I feel for me, it's about sort of radical mindfulness. So being really, really present in the moment. And there's joy in there's sweetness in every single moment if you're totally tuned into the moment. And it might be the way your coffee tastes, or the way the sun feels on your skin, or the way the dog feels when you pat the dog, or the light in your children's eyes. There is sweet all around us. The world is made out of love. The universe is made out of love. And when we relax and we show up for that, because I think we spend a lot of time in our minds perseverating on our troubles and anxiety. And when we drop out of that in the moment, that's where the joy is.
That's beautiful. And so true. So true. And so many people feel they can't have joy when they're going through things, but that's the whole idea, is to heal, to get back to joy. Lisa, your mission resonates amazingly with the heart of Grief and Rebirth podcast, to educate, to enlighten, and empower people with healing choices as they navigate life's most tender moment. Thank you from my heart for your wisdom, your light, and your dedication to mentoring the next generation of healers. And thank you for this enlightening and healing interview.
Thank you so much for having me on your beautiful podcast, and for all the amazing work you're doing in the world too.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. To be continued, I like to say. I think we need another interview when you've got that new book out about inner child work.
Sounds great.
Okay. Bye. To be continued.
Thanks for tuning in to Grief and Rebirth. Remember, you can dive deeper into everything we've discussed by checking out the show notes and all past episodes at ireneweinberg.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Irene S. Weinberg on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and wherever you love to hang out online. Plus, we're on YouTube, so be sure to subscribe and never miss a video. For those of you listening, you'll find links to my 2 books, Good to the Last Drop and They Serve Bagels in Heaven, in the show notes. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see those books listed right above, so don't miss out. And here comes a special treat. If you sign up for Audible as a first-time user using my link, which you can find in the show notes, you can get They Serve Bagels in Heaven for free. And finally, people often ask me what I read, what I use, and what I recommend for healing and self-care. So I've carefully curated a compilation of those items to share with you. You can head over to kit.co/Grief and Rebirth to check them out. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, many blessings.